Yay! I always start my calls like that. It's very unoriginal by now. JSEMP 2024. First call of September. First call of October. Wow. Yeah, September, I devoted the September calls to talking about fear. And I did the first call about, the basic fears that we carry inside of ourselves. And the second call was about the fears that are kind of like all pervasive. They're all around us and we're kind of, bathing in them all the time. And 1 month talking about fear is not really enough. So I'm going to talk about fear a bit more tonight, with a different angle, more about, listen, the goal of us activating our pillars of light more and more is constantly to come back to understanding, what does it mean to be standing in my pillar? What does it mean? What does it mean for me to be centered in myself? And a good way to understand what's the opposite of that, the opposite of standing in your pillar of light, is to be in your ego. It's like, I hadn't really thought about that, but if we want to like try to dualistically, because the mind does dualistic shit, like if we want to understand what's the difference between you being that core essence that understands it is powerful and stable, like deep in your core star and deep in your sacred heart space, the opposite of that is when we are in our ego, in that fear-based constructed identity that constantly needs to do things to protect itself and assert itself and assert its identity. And we don't really take time to think about this a lot, but honestly, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to be in our ego all the time. It's like we're living on the membrane. Oh my God, like Living on the Edge song coming in. Yes. It's like we're like, we've got this membrane around us, and that's what's bumping into everything. And then we have to like kind of like, oh, okay, like I gotta realign myself. I have to push back. I have to defend. I have to this, after that. No wonder we're so freaking tired. No wonder, we get burnouts and things like that. Your egoic mind has there's no end to what it needs you to do in order for it to feel safe, right? Whether it's asserting your boundaries or letting that guy know what he did or bitching about this or stuffing down whatever it's the deeper parts of us are feeling, which is all trying to come up to be healed. It has a full-time 75-hour a week, what am I saying? 500-hour a week job kind of thing, constantly being aware of what could threaten it. So many, many years ago, I was trying to like come up with a metaphor of how I would describe the difference between being stuck in our ego and what it's like to actually be embodied in our soul. And the metaphor that came up for me, and I'm probably going to develop that into like some kind of course or something, because it's a great little metaphor. It's when we are in our ego, we are standing on a pedestal. And it's a little wobbly pedestal at best, maybe it's got little curtains around it so that it looks all solid and stuff, but it's a pedestal. And I called it the pedestal of pain because you as an ego standing on top of that pedestal is about you receiving what Hawkins would call ego juice, receiving ego juice. That pedestal of pain can either be about pity or praise. It can either be the pedestal of poor me, everything I go through, blah, 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 and sucking up the attention from that. Or it's the pedestal of praise, like, look at me, everything I do, everything I'm so strong, I'm so this, I'm so that. Either way, it is based on a state of pain, because that pedestal, anyone can walk by and kick it. Like, it's no wonder our ego's so fucking stressed out all the time. And the metaphor goes even deeper than that, because underneath that pedestal, there's a bunch of stuff going on. If I think about the Olympics things, right? They have like that little pedestal to go on for first place, second place, third place, whatever. Like it looks solid, there's maybe like a little curtain in front, but underneath there, it's hollow. There's nothing underneath there. And it's not like a solid structure. So what your ego really is, I talk about this a little bit, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper tonight in what the ego is. I've said the ego is a fear-based thought as to what you are. And as such, it's a lie, because no fear-based thought is ever going to be the truth. No thought is ever going to be the truth. That's like, ouch, but we'll talk about that after. But what your ego is an entire compensation system. It's a compensatory system in order to be something that you're not afraid is going to be judged, in a nutshell. So what's underneath that pedestal? Everything in you judge. Everything in you that's been judged. Everything you have built an identity to counteract that. So for example, whatever, like think about someone being bullied in school. Oh, you're such a crybaby. So then you're like, shit, I can't be a crybaby. That's the judgment. I'm a crybaby. So I can't be that. So I'm going to be strong. I'm not going to express my needs. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to ask anyone for anything. That's my little example right now. So instead of being like the person that's actually able to be in touch with their emotions and actually expresses how they feel, you then decide that's wrong, that's bad, that gets me in trouble, or that takes away the juice that I as an ego need from others to feel safe. So I will cut that part of me off. I will stuff it down under that pedestal, also called the dungeon. I'll stuff it down there. I'll act like it doesn't exist, and I will develop this other thing that is the opposite of it. I'm strong. I don't cry. I'm not a pussy, whatever. Like, and we have done this over and over again. Any form of trauma, any judgments we've received from authority figures, parental figures, it becomes this thing where we stuff all these things down that make us too vulnerable, and that we internalize the judgment of, because it might have been someone else that judged you at the beginning, but it's now you doing that full time. Your ego is now the, what do we call that? The internalized parental figure, the super ego, or whatever Freud calls that. And you are now walking around with this entire compensation system of, this is what I am. This is what I am, because I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm this. I'm this. I'm this. That's what that pedestal looks like. Like, that is not a fun place to hang out. Because this is the other thing about this pedestal, is that it's not stable, because that stuff underneath, it's constantly trying to come up to be heard, to be loved, to be, so not only is there this constant risk that people outside of you will not agree and approve and give you the food that you're exuding, but on top of that, you got to deal with the fact that there's something underneath the pedestal that's pushing up on it. Like, hey, like, we're stuck down here, like, hey. So it's a very unstable place. It's a very unstable place to be on that pedestal of pain, seeking pity or praise. And when you're on that pedestal, what you're doing is you're kind of trying to project this thing out, but it's all about what you get back, right? So think about ego, we think about projection. So you are projecting an image, but the ego is very unstable, and the ego needs confirmation. The ego needs the outer world to confirm what it is walking around acting like it is, so that it can feel safe. And the minute that the world doesn't confirm that, maybe it confirms what's underneath the pedestal, the ego feels completely destabilized. And then, believe it or not, it can go from praise to pity in like a split second, which is super interesting too, which is kind of like the drama triangle from Cartman, but that's another story. So we've got this situation where you wearing an ego, have this reality in you, which is a fear-based thought, which is a compensation system, which is a judgmental reality that's been imposed onto the entirety of what you are in order to separate and segment and kind of like, that's bad, this is good, So all these separations, and it creates a completely fragmented self. How could it not be, right? Because if you're allowed to be this and not that, then are you anything? Like, I'm just talking about it, it's like kind of like, oh my God, like so that's the egoic reality. That's the egoic reality, a fear-based thought that is doing everything it can to never have to look down and actually become aware of that pedestal it's on, that pedestal is very unstable, and that even more fundamentally, that pedestal that it is standing on, that it is resting its identity upon, is literally a lie. It's literally a lie. It's all fear. All fear is a lie. This is really, you'd figure that would like, I'm free, but it's like, that's not the effect it has on the ego at all. The ego's like, what I'm afraid of is fucking real. Like, and part of that is due to our brain structure and to the fact that this is very interesting to consider, that the ego is a system that can only look outside. Everything is based on outer conditions. And when I say outer, I am including thoughts, I am including sensations, I am including anything that's not the pure soul core star within you. That's stable. We're going to talk about that after. That's the other option. Because you in a physical body are walking around with a body, a survival system, a mind that is complex, but it's not really that complex. The entire focus is on the outer world and how to survive. If you look in the animal kingdom, that's the reality. It doesn't mean the animal kingdom's a big ego and they're walking around they're walking around with hatred and pride and whatever, like, but in a human brain, that's what that ends up looking like. Until you do the work to grow up, grow into your soul, and the only true place where there is stability within you, you are focused on the outer world and you are focused on how to survive. And that is fear-based. It works. You survive with fear. There's no doubt about it. Look at the animal kingdom. But this is the issue. As long as you are focused on the outer world, as long as what's going on in the outer world and how it affects your mind and your body is where you have put your attention, it's like that's where you're putting your essence, then you will not experience truth with a capital T. You will not experience peace with a capital P. You can't. Everything's freaking changing all the time out there. And even in your mind, spend 5 minutes listening to your mind and you'll see it's just like blah, 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 blah about everything. It never stops. When we have focused our essence into the outer world, we are faced with a world that is constantly in flux, constantly changing, and we are constantly trying to adapt to that and keep our integrity. Okay, keep the egoic integrity in place. Just talking about it is tiring me out so bad. I'm like, oh my God, it's so heavy. And it is. It's so heavy. There you are on this little pedestal wearing this like super heavy garment. It's almost so heavy that the pedestal is almost like shaking and the legs are almost about to break. And there's like stuff coming from underneath it too. That's the reality of living from within the egoic structure. I'm living from within your mind, from living with the focus put on the outer world, which automatically leads to needing to focus on specific things, right? It's kind of like I need that. Like, my purpose is that. And that's a line. And then that line means you can't see anything else going on anymore. Like in a weird way, it sounds crazy to say, but to have purpose, to be super locked into a purpose is to lose track of the entirety of life all around you. Wow. And that's kind of the theme I want to play with tonight is focus and flow. So egoic structure, focused, needs to maintain something, is aware of everything going on outside of it, is aware there's something underneath it that wants to like rah at all times, needs the outer world to give it the confirmation of the image it's projecting, or else it doesn't feel safe. That's the reality of ego on its little pedestal of pain. The other reality, yay, the other reality, instead of being on a pedestal of pain, is to be in a pillar of peace, in a pillar of presence. Just the wording here is super interesting. To be on a pedestal, right? It's like to be on something, to be standing on something, as opposed to be inside, as opposed to be within a pillar. So, when your focus is on the outer world, you are living in a world of lies. Like we've been told this over and over again. It's so hard to really like truth with a capital T is something that never changes. Doesn't matter who comes to see it, it is the same. Truth with a capital T. I'm not talking about little truths, the truths of the way you see things and your opinions or whatever, or the way your culture sees things. Truth with a capital T is a direct experience. And anyone that has a direct experience knows the truth with a capital T. Anyone that has a direct experience of like deeply connecting into their sacred heart space and feeling their core star, no one can explain to you when you have that direct experience, you know with a capital K, the truth with a capital T. So any form of meditation, all these things that we do in calls like this, all spiritual seeking is about coming back deep inside, Outer world will always be unstable. It's normal. It's fluctuating all the time. The place where you find the stability is deep within yourself. It is the only place you will ever truly find stability. And more importantly, from that internal place of stability, it is actually fun to play out in the world where everything is constantly changing. All of a sudden, the idea that the outer world is kind of like malleable and you can kind of like sculpt it and shape it into what you feel like creating now becomes something fun instead of being absolutely terrifying for the ego. The ego needs things out there to stay stable. It's the only way it can ensure the integrity of its own stability. And that ego integrity, that's what we want to become very clear about what that is. A lot of that integrity is about, I need to be this so that I don't feel that. I need you to be like this so that I don't have to feel that. I need, blah, 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 blah from the outer world. I need to manipulate and control everything so that I don't feel what's deep inside of myself. And what the ego doesn't understand, that what's actually deep inside of yourself is your soul sovereignty. And like, that's the name of the whole year, right? Activating our pillar of light from ego integrity to soul sovereignty. And this is it. The sovereignty of your soul is the deepest place within you where there is only peace. Everything is allowed to be. Everything is allowed to be. Everything is held. Everything is loved. And at the same time, none of it is given status of truth with a capital T. The part of you that you judged, that judgment, it's a lie. The part of you that lives in truth with a capital T isn't going to like act like that's true. It offers its field. It can hold all that in there. Without believing it. Because this is another thing. Belief has nothing to do with truth. You know, I don't know where I heard that. It was super awesome. It was like something like, I don't need to believe. Once you've had a direct experience of something, you don't need to believe anything about it. You know what it is. There's no more need to carry around your beliefs. And that's, wow, that's what we want. We want to constantly come back to that deep state of pure knowing. And for the ego, there's something really scary about that, because it's like, what, I'm just going to be like some, and I'm never going to move. I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to want to go have fun or play or this or that. And no, that's fucking bullshit. You know, if you're not that ego standing on a pedestal, scared shitless about everything and acting like you're not, if you're not that, then you are standing in your light, and you remember the most important truth is that you're here to play. You're here to express your soul. And you're here to be free to express your soul and to let everyone else be free to express whatever the fuck they want to express. Even if it's their wounded ego, even if it's their, I'm offended by you, even if it's their, whatever. You're here to set everyone free to be in whatever experience they want to be. More importantly, you are here to set yourself free from the lies you've believed and from that pedestal, so that you can actually be standing in your pillar. Instead of standing on a pedestal, you can be standing within. Let's see. What else do I want to say? Yes. When I was first working these ideas about 5 years ago about the pedestal of pain, my opposite to it was the throne of togetherness. Because like it really helped to capture the way I saw it. It's just like this big, like marble rock throne, just beautifully carved. It's just pure, pure high frequency, precious stone. And you sit upon your throne of togetherness, where everything is there. There's no more parts you don't like, parts you hate about yourself under the pedestal, and parts you want to show everyone because you're like, here, feed me, look at me, like all of a sudden you're back, and you are like, sitting in your light, aware of what you are through direct experience, and just able to beam out. Because this is the thing, you're here to express your soul and your light. This is not about, I'm going to send something out there so that the outer world confirms that I'm okay. You know, expression is not a two-way thing. This is really interesting. Expression is not, there's no codependency involved in expression. To express yourself is, how can I say this? Regardless of how it's received, that's secondary. I don't even want to say secondary. When we are in a codependency towards the world, we need the world to respond to what we express. When you are in a state of independence within your soul, you express what is in you simply because that's what you are. That's your only true purpose here. This is not a serious place. This is a place to play. God, God knows it doesn't seem like that from the little pedestals that, our egos are on. But that is the deepest truth. You are here to express your soul and your light into this world based on what you most long for at a deep soul level, not what your ego needs in order to feel safe, what your soul knows and wants to express. I got to be careful because I wanted to say the word share. And even share is tricky because share involves someone receiving it. So if you share something and someone's like, meh, then you're like, oh. Imagine that you can have the absolute freedom of sharing your soul expression in the world with no regards for how it's received. For how it's received by what? By people on pedestals? If someone's on a pedestal and they need pity or praise, and you express your soul with no regard for what their ego needs, their ego is not going to find your expression particularly interesting for it. Does it mean there's anything wrong with it? No, it just means they're not listening. It means they are so involved in what they need as food from others that they cannot receive the expression of life. So, wow, 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 wow. Remember that the pedestal of pain, either pity or praise. Look at me, as opposed to your pillar of peace, your pillar of presence, your pillar that you're just beaming, you're beaming light out. You don't need anyone to acknowledge it. You're just being you. You're just doing the most natural thing, which is to express your soul. So that's the meditation we're going in tonight. So I will stop the part of the recording I'm putting on YouTube and let's have some fun with a beautiful meditation.